going though? Oh, I face it. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. We're beginning our second episode for Back to Life, and this episode is actually titled "How Do You Talk to Your Kids About Abortion?" So we're very happy to be here again, and we've been able to fix the camera, and so we're hoping that this goes well today.
We wanted to do this episode because Right to Life has an initiative called Life Team Presentation, where we give presentations to local 8th grade classrooms, introduce them to the topic of abortion, and talk about fetal development. To make each presentation a little bit more fun, we have the kids ask us questions, and we've got some really funny questions over the years, but one that we get all the time is, do you have kids? Do you have kids, Jay?
No.
Are
I don't.
Sure?
Yep, I don't have kids. Yeah, I have spiritually adopted children. We might talk a little bit about spiritual adoption in another episode. But basically just praying for a child for 9 months that they'll be spared from abortion. And then you can kind of keep track of how old the child is throughout their life. So I have 5 spiritually adopted kids, but I don't have any kids of my own.
I don't have any kids of my own either, but I have a cat. So cute, that's Tasha.
Yes. So
this is Chester. He's so happy to make his live Facebook debut. I have spiritually adopted children too. I have one that's named Chester Owen after my cat and my fiance. I named him that before my fiance and I started dating, so it was meant to be. But as we delve into this topic, we wanted to talk a little bit about how our parents talk to us about abortion. How did your parents talk to you about abortion?
So for me, it was I was involved with the pro-life movement from a very young age, the youngest as long as I can remember. We were doing things, and it was something we talked about at church. But like as a little kid, it's very interesting. I don't really remember from my youngest ages. I don't remember so much what was said as like little images. So like I remember like we would put every year on January 22nd, the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, we'd take a white bag that said choose life on it in red, and then you put a candle in it in the sand, and you put that out in the snow, because I'm from Michigan, there's a lot of snow, and you put it in the snow, and then you let it burn all night. And like for me, it was kind of like, it's basically the idea of a stable floating lantern. Basically, it just lights up the white bag, and then anyone who passes can see this choose life lit up with the candle behind it. And so I just remember doing that, or going to the life chain, and we would stand with others along a long line and hold signs. And even from my youngest ages of, I would sit on someone else's shoulders, and I'd still have my sign or my rosary or my prayers. And yeah, that was kind of the biggest thing I remember as a very little kid.
My parents have been involved since I was born, since before I was born. But I remember they never like sat me down and we never had an abortion talk. But I remember being at one of the life chains, and we were sitting in the woods for some reason with my cousins, and they told me what abortion was, and I remember saying to them, oh, we have to protect, because my mom was pregnant at the time, we have to protect my younger sibling from these people trying to kill unborn children. And my cousins were like, no, this is something that women choose for their own children. And I just couldn't comprehend that. Growing up with several younger siblings, and every pregnancy was, of course, welcomed as a new human being coming into our family. So I must have been like 5 or 6 at the time, but I couldn't comprehend what abortion was. And doing these Life Team presentations and talking to younger kids about abortion, they really get it. Like, it's just really simple. Mm-hmm. They see that the unborn is a human being, and that killing that life is wrong. So I love talking to kids about abortion, but it can seem to be difficult, because abortion is definitely a very heavy topic. So we have 4 tips on how to talk to your kids or any kids about abortion. What's the first one?
Yeah, so the first tip is to focus on the beauty of life. Um, you have to focus, whenever you're talking about any topic, you usually begin by talking about something, a positive element. So if you have to tell somebody something that's difficult, you start out with something positive. Or if you have to reconcile with someone, it's best to start out with a certain compliment because it makes it easier for them to take what they're about to receive. Well, in some cases, you're doing that in order to just kind of calm the storm. But in this case, it's actually done in the purpose of giving your child the right view about life in general. The reason why abortion is so bad is because life is so good. And so abortion in and of itself is an evil. But if you just start out with that, sometimes the child will adopt that mindset, but they won't understand why. And they don't understand, if they don't understand the beauty of their own life and the beauty of the lives of their siblings and their peers, then it really won't mean a lot to them. At least it might mean more here, but it won't mean a lot in their heart.
For our life team presentations, we do that. So before we talk about abortion, we talk about fetal development and walk kids through the stages of fetal development. And so we bring fetal models to the presentation. This is one of our newer ones that we haven't used yet. Mm-hmm. We've been using that one where one of the babies is stolen.
Yep. We have a little. We have a little set, and you have a 7-week, 8-week, 9-week, and 10th week, and the 8th week is just.
I like passing that one around though, because that always makes the kids laugh when I say that the baby was stolen, and I tell them not to steal the other one. But this particular set is really interesting because it goes all the way from this is a enlarged human zygote, and then through 12 weeks gestation. Mm-hmm. Then we have these. The kids. Oops. Thanks. The kids really like to see what the womb looks like because I always talk about the process of birth, and this visual illustration really helps them. We also always show ultrasound when we're doing these presentations, 3D or 2D and 3D. There's one particular video, the dancing one, of a 12-week fetus who looks like he's dancing in the womb, and it just solidifies for the kids that there's definitely a living human being in the womb.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's one video recently, this might be the one you're talking about, but we have one 3D ultrasound where you definitely can see that the child is moving a lot. And then there's another one that we haven't played yet at the life teams, but we were thinking of doing it because it's kind of like you could see the child just kind of kick off of the uterus wall.
Looks like he's swimming.
Yes, and it looks like he's swimming. And the cool thing about it is if you watch it muted, you look at it and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. Like there's just no sound at all. But if you unmute it and you hear like the mother and like the father and I think even some siblings and they're talking, it's just so exciting. And it's like, this is the excitement of a family that's awaiting a new addition to the family or becoming a family for the first time when it's the oldest. So making it really real for the youth is very, very important.
It's when you prepare yourself for this conversation, be educated. When I give the life team presentations, a lot of times the teachers learn almost just as much as the kids. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to talk to your kids about this difficult topic, it's really important to know your stuff, know how an abortion happens, how abortion not only hurts children, obviously, but women and society as a whole as well. We're going to post some websites and book suggestions in the comments on this video once it's posted, so check the post for some recommendations on how to educate yourself on the abortion issue. Our third suggestion is to be truthful. Talking about abortion is always really difficult because it's a really brutal reality. But if we're going to get kids to be pro-life for their whole lives, and if they are ever in a situation where they face an unexpected pregnancy, that abortion would be unthinkable for them, they have to know the brutal reality of what abortion is. So we, in our presentation, we don't show any graphic images, but I do describe the procedure very clearly. And what's interesting is I've noticed a couple times when I haven't had time to give the description of what abortion does, I'll have kids ask me about exceptions like, what about abortion in the case of rape or abortion in the case of disability or something like that. But when I give the descriptions of what abortion is, then I rarely get those questions about the exceptions, because when you hear exactly just how terrible abortion is, then it's something that you know very clearly is not supposed to be justified, especially children. And it can be difficult. I remember talking to my sisters about abortion, and they started crying, and I've had that with students too when they hear about it. But I always tell kids, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to get angry. This is something that you can be justifiably angry about, but that kind of leads into our last tip.
Yeah, so the last one is to give the child an opportunity to be engaged, and also to like do something active. I think for me, when I was growing up, one of the reasons why abortion was like such a big issue is because I was able to relate it to something in my own life. I was able to look at the numbers of those who were aborted during the year I was born and during the year that I was in the womb. And I was able to like look at my friends that were born during that year and be like, whoa, how many friends do I have that aren't alive, that aren't, that I've never met because they were aborted. And it kind of made it real to me. And so it needs to be kind of tangible for the students, but they also need to be able to know what can they do to help end abortion. For me, my parents would take me, my dad and my sister and I would go to the abortion clinic, and we would pray there. And like it was a very safe place for me to just pray, but it also made it real because I knew this is the place where it's happening. So it wasn't really, for me, it never was kind of an abstract idea. It was always something that was really real. And so even if you aren't able to take your children to the clinic itself, to be able to pray in the church very intentionally, there was a prayer we prayed every lunch for an end to abortion. And so it was like it made it really, really real. So.
Yeah. We always, our last episode was about this, but at the end of our Life 2 presentations that we did this year, we always encourage students to submit to our Dear Mayor Pete contest.
Yes.
So, yeah, details about that on our website. So yeah, you should definitely talk to your children about abortion, but if you'd like to invite the Life Team to come to your school or your youth group, even if you talk to your kids about abortion, it's really helpful to bring in people who are actually part of the movement full time, especially young people like Jay and I. It's really impactful for kids to see that young people are, kind of leading this movement. So if you'd like to do that, message us, Paige. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus, we won't be able to do any presentations in schools for the next couple of months, but we could do a youth group presentation this summer, and definitely next semester we'll be doing lots of Life Team presentations. So
we also haven't done Life Team presentations, to my knowledge, in religious ed classrooms, but I know a lot of churches, for those students who are homeschooled or go to public schools and wouldn't be able to be exposed to some of these presentations, I know that they've also had weekly meetings, and we'd be happy to do that as well. 7th and 8th grade is the age group that we generally work with and present for, but even for high school, we did Melanie did a presentation last month, or this month actually, for high school youth group as well. So that's an option too.
Yeah, and even if it's a secular youth group, like even in the Catholic schools that we presented in, there have been pro-choice students, and they definitely benefit from this presentation, probably more than anyone. So yeah, we can present to anyone, even if adults would be interested in hearing about fetal development and abortion. I've tailored the presentation to a lot of different audiences. So
in fact, actually, that's a good point too, in terms of recently I was talking with our director, and if a church is very interested in getting involved, but this is kind of a new thing for them, a Life Team presentation actually might be the best way to start. Because, like, let's say your church, they want to be involved in the pro-life movement, but they're like, well, what do we do? How do we start? How do we all get on the same page? And we definitely could tailor a class or a Life Team presentation or two for a church for adults too. So
tomorrow, barring that the world isn't shut down, we're gonna talk about pro-life movies. And not just like Unplanned and God's Knell and the ones that everyone thinks about, but some popular movies that have pro-life themes that would be good to watch and discuss with your family while you're shut in. So
Yes,
tomorrow.
we'll be answering those kind of questions like how does pro-life values, how do our pro-life values make it into modern day movies, and what can we gain? How can we learn from these movies? So it'll be fun.
Yep.
Tune
So
in.
see you tomorrow.
Yep.